Hi, welcome to my weekly vlog. This week there's lots to talk about, starting with the debate that I ran in Westminster Hall on Tuesday, in which we spoke about the closure of Shepton Mallet Community Hospital inpatient beds. I wanted to raise with the government sort of what had happened there and how potentially we might need the government's help just to make sure that things reopen as quickly as possible, and that crucially the longer term plans for the health campus remain as we'd always expected, and that we get that extension with an inpatient ward and public health facilities and maybe even a doctor's surgery and pharmacy and all those things beside. The big sort of debate in Westminster this week, beyond the budget, has been the fallout of an amendment to the European Withdrawal Bill that was considered in Parliament last week to do with whether or not animals can feel pain. Now, the reality is that absolutely everybody in Parliament, me included, absolutely believes that animals are sentient beings that can feel pain. And in fact, in UK law already, in the Animal Welfare Act, it very clearly says that animals can feel pain. Now, it doesn't say explicitly that they are sentient, but surely if they can feel pain, if the bill acknowledges suffering, then by definition that acknowledges sentience. But still, Michael Gove, the Environment Minister, said last week, and he said again this week, that there will be legislation post-Brexit that makes very clear that animals are sentient beings. And what you also need to remember, I think, is that the very purpose of the EU Withdrawal Bill is to facilitate the transfer of all existing EU law into UK law, and therefore all animal protections that are currently within EU law automatically come across to UK law. Now, some people have called the story that you might have seen online fake news. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I think it just belies a slight misunderstanding over what was being debated in Parliament last week. We were voting against an amendment to a bill because we were trying to make good legislation, and that didn't mean that in not voting for that amendment that we were somehow supporting the inverse of the amendment, which would be to say that animals weren't sentient beings. And the great thing is that even the independent newspaper, which was responsible for sort of breaking the story to, I think, 2 million people, they have today clarified that they did indeed get it wrong. And of course, it doesn't mean that by not voting for the amendment, we were somehow saying that animals were not sentient beings. So I hope that people are reassured and that all of that furore can now go away. Now, the other thing that's been going on this week, obviously, was the budget. There was lots of good stuff in it, I thought. The changes to universal credit are very welcome, so too with a very ambitious target set for house building, and the additional funding for our NHS. That will all make a big difference locally, as well as some other really eye-catching things about sort of low interest loans for local authorities against which to borrow to build high value infrastructure. I thought that was quite interesting. Measures to boost productivity, measures to support small businesses. So within the budget, you know, it wasn't the most sort of radical budget that we've ever seen, but it was good, and there's plenty there that will be of value to us here in Somerset. I've finished my week down here in the constituency with a great day. Firstly, visiting British Solar Renewables, who are based in Shepton Mallet and are an amazing company who are doing great things with solar, but also now with battery storage, which is a really important part of making renewables really work within our energy system. Then I visited Western Power Distribution to learn about the actual network in our area and how that's maintained. And now I finished the day here at King Alfred School in Highbridge, where I've just been meeting with the head and their sponsors from the Priory Learning Trust, and I'm really excited to hear about their plans for how they're going to improve the school. So that's enough from me. More next week, but good to see you.